Hey everybody, happy Friday. We are continuing our event planning mini series. We are gathering perspectives across the event industry, and today we have another wonderful guest with us. Mark, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us about the events you manage?
Sure. Well, I'm Mark Boyle. I'm the director of choral and vocal activities at Seton University, which is a small school right outside of Pittsburgh. And I assist with the conference app usage for the American Choral Directors Association at the national level, and I help manage the implementation of the Guidebook app at all of our region conferences as well. And being in the Northeast, I actually do implement the Northeast region usage of the app. I've been doing this work since 2015. Started in the Eastern region and very quickly was asked to manage everything for the national organization, and I've been doing it ever since, and I love it. It's it's very rewarding work. It's all volunteer, and it's something I truly enjoy doing.
That's amazing. So how many events do you kind of work on, sort of get involved with a year? Like, what's the kind of number of events you're operating?
So the ACDA does a national conference in odd years, and then the regions do conferences in even years. And planning an event like this is a multi-year process. So things are always in planning stages. So in national years, I'm only worrying about one large event. And then in the region years, I'm managing the Eastern region use of the app and acting as a resource and kind of a trainer for all of the other people that are doing my job in the other regions. So in those even years, I'm involved in some way with 5 conferences, often that are happening all around the same time, some of them at the same time, like over the same week, which can be tricky. But fortunately, the people that we have volunteering in the other regions are fantastic. And once I get them trained, and because we want the implementation of Guidebook across our conferences to be similar. We want a similar look and feel, so that when someone goes to a region conference and they use the app, and then they come to the national conference and use the app, it's a similar feel. Everything looks relatively similar. And then there are also some smaller state conferences that, again, I act as a resource. I train them in managing and implementing Guidebook, and that's it. So it varies from year to year how many events I'm involved with.
Yeah, nice. And outside of, because I guess that your annual and your regionals are going to have maybe slightly different approaches to their events and different goals. And I'm curious, outside of Guidebook, with the events, as a whole, as their own entity, like, what are the goals for those events when you bring these people together? Like, what's it you're trying to achieve by running these conferences?
So they're very similar. Like the national goals for the national conference and the region goals are going to be very similar. People come to these events to hear incredible performances by ensembles. So all of the events are curated. So if you want to perform at one of these conferences, it's an audition process, a blind audition process, and that takes time as well, right? So people submit recordings. There are very specific requirements for the recordings. For the national, you have to have recordings from 3 subsequent years of you conducting the choir. And that happens basically at both the region level and the national level. And then the national level, wherever we are. This past year we were in Dallas. We usually interface with the local symphony and a local symphony chorus to be kind of one of the headlining performances. We also bring in choirs as headliners. We brought in the Tomina Chor from Leipzig this past year, was one of our big headlining choirs. We feature choirs from the local area as well in a welcome concert, the first. So that's people are coming to hear those choirs, and people are coming from a wide variety of places. High school choir directors, church choir directors, temple musicians, community choir directors, professional choir directors. It's the whole range. Collegiate, K through 12, private, public, and they're coming to be inspired by these performances, to hear repertoire that they've not heard before, so that they can hear it and go, oh, maybe I can do that with my choir. And then in addition, there are, like most conferences, there's going to be interest sessions where people present both research, information on rep, information on technique and choral conducting, other things that are connected to the industry, fundraising, being sensitive to diversity, making sure that the music that you're doing represents the singers that you have and the community that you have, that it's not just a bunch of dead white guys, but it's in our past that was a problem for us, right? I mean, a lot of the music that we did was a bunch of dead white guys, and then even the predominantly publicized composers, not to get into this, I don't want to,
it's an important topic, and we are right there with you.
So the organization at all levels is seeking to make sure that there's good representation, because if a budding composer can see themselves in the music, they are going to want to be part of the process and be encouraged to seek a future in whether it's composing or conducting or whatever it happens to be. So there are a lot of different pieces of these conferences. There's also rep choruses that you can be part of that are this choir is looking at the music of the Black diaspora in the United States. This choir is looking at music from Latin America. This choir is looking at Baroque music from 1600 to 1750 from Germany, right? I mean, so you can really hone in on something specific, but you also can get a wide variety of information. And it's, size. The national conference is big. The region conferences are fairly big, depending on where you are. And then the state conferences are a little smaller. And people go to network as well.
And just to gain a little bit more perspective on that size, because it feels like there's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of curation that's going into that. In terms of attendance at your main conference, like how many people do you see come through the doors? How many people kind of sign up and register?
Sure. So that varies, obviously, from year to year, and it also depends on where it is and how easy it is. See, the process of finding the right city, I mean, and a city that is easy to travel to and affordable and all those things. So it ranges. It ranges probably, I would say, attendees is probably somewhere between 3,500 and 4,000. Might be a little bit more than that, might be a little bit less. But then on top of that, you might have 10 choirs coming to perform as well that have auditioned, plus the family members, plus we have honor choirs. So at the national level, there's a national high school honor choir, there's a national middle school honor choir, and those choirs have 200 something kids in them, and all their family is there, right? So there might be another 1,500 people on top of that are there performing. That could be more, it could be slightly less. It just depends on the size of the ensembles. So this is one of the reasons why we make the app not password protected, right? So I mean, you have to set up. You have to set up an account to interface with anything, as you'd imagine. But we want the performers to be able to get in, even though they're not registered attendees, because they're there for usually the whole conference. And so we put the rehearsal schedule for the honor choirs in there so that parents can see where it is. But also attendees want to go watch these rehearsals and see these really top tier conductors rehearse. So all of that information we put in there as well. So that's numbers.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. It's good to get that context and more of an idea of the size and the scale of the event that you're organizing. And I'm keen just as well, thinking around technology, and you've mentioned Guidebook a couple of times, but are there any trends within technology that you're kind of paying attention to? Is there anything that you're kind of aware of where you're sort of starting to think of like how that might help support your event, or the production process, the planning process, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I mean the planning, again, the planning process. There's a conference committee. I've been on the conference committees for the last. I've been on every conference committee since 2017 for the national, and then for region since 2015. It's all volunteer with staff from the national office. So we're kind of interfacing and working together to make all that happen. Streaming has become a more of an important thing. For us, we run into copyright issues, because streaming music that is copyrighted, that's a whole separate thing that we have to go through and pay for a streaming license. In 2021, we like many organizations, we canceled the in-person conference and did a virtual conference, and it was very successful. Like the attendee numbers were up like what a normal conference would be, and it was my team, the app committee, that actually kind of helped manage that whole thing, because the back end of the platform we used was very similar to the app back end that we were using at the time. And so I sat in my office in my house with 3 monitors, managing everything with working with our tech person at the national office. So, because that was so successful and people liked being able to watch things after the fact, we've had lots of requests for, can this be streamed? Can that be streamed? So things can be people who can't attend in person, can they pay to attend virtually and still be able to see some portions of the conference? That's a big thing. I can't speak for the national office directly, but we're always looking for ways to simplify things, and knowing that there is API between the Guidebook platform and just about everything else, including registration. That is, looking for ways to simplify that have been ongoing things as well, just in general discussions. So yeah, I think those are probably the big things.
I'd love to dig into that a little bit more. One of Guidebook's theses as a company is that digital technology should facilitate or accelerate that in-person connection, right? So we're always thinking about the duality of in-person and virtual. And I love that you're here with us talking about music, and especially choral music, because that's like one of the most original human expressions, right? So tell us a little bit more about the pros and cons of the in-person experience versus the virtual experience. Do you have similar goals? Do people have similar experiences? What works? What doesn't work? Tell us more about that.
So, it's being able to speak to that because of the 2021 virtual conference. We tried setting up, because again, as I mentioned, a big part of the in-person conference is in-person networking and connecting to people physically, being able to shake their hand, being able to give people hugs that you work in the same field. And as you said, choral music, especially one of the original, musical art forms, it's about community, right? When you join a choir because you don't want to be alone in your room singing. I'm from New England, so forgive my little accent with room. My kids make fun of me all the time. But you're not a choral person because you want to sing to a microphone in your living room by yourself. You're a choral person because you want to be in a room, breathing with other people, connecting to them. So inherently, most choral conductors, I think, love that in-person feel. It's not to say we didn't get very creative during COVID with all kinds of things with virtual experiences, but there's something to be said about being in the room and being part of what's going on physically, and then being able to walk out and go have a meal with friends you don't get to see all that often and talk about, geek out about choral music. What we tried to do with the virtual conference was have little social breakout rooms where people could get together. And, it worked at the time because of where we were with the situation. One of the things I think that COVID taught us is to lean more into what Robert Schuller once would have called possibility thinking, and being a bit more visionary about, okay, yes, this is an ideal, but what if we think of it this way, and we can access this technology to just increase what we already have, not to necessarily take the place of in-person things, but sometimes, in a given year, someone might not be able to have the funds to travel. So, to be able to creatively find ways to pull those people into the room virtually, as technology continues to improve, I would be shocked if, as an organization, we didn't really start to look into those options as we go forward, because it increases the tent, right? I mean, if you're a first-year teacher in a, you've just graduated from college, and you're in a district that's a rural district that doesn't have a lot of money, so they can't pay for you to go to the conference, and you don't have disposable income, but you can't afford $100 to attend virtually, instead of paying $1,200 for a room and $600 for a plane ticket and all this other stuff. I honestly, I believe, again, I can't speak for the organization officially, but me personally, as a choral conductor, if we can make the tent bigger for people who are at different points in their career or at different points in their financial life, I think that's fantastic. And to be able to leverage and take advantage of technology as it becomes available, I think that's a smart thing for us to do.
I love that lens of not just technology as a shortcut or, okay, let's go virtual so we can keep our revenue stream coming in as an association, but more about inclusion, accessibility, either with an uppercase A or a lowercase a, being able to create community spaces in different ways so more people, I love that phrase, they're in the tent, you made the tent bigger. That makes sense to me. I think that's a really important way that technology can be useful, and also you don't diminish the value of in-person events. You're adding on to it. You're including more people. Nathan, did you have any other questions for Mark today?
Yeah, I mean, my last question is kind of just, you have a lot of components, as we sort of touched on, and I was just curious, really just like, how do you measure the success of your event? You've talked about the networking, you've talked about bringing all these different components and experiences together. When you step back from an annual event and you start thinking about the next one, how are you determining whether you're meeting your goals, and then really analyzing what you might need to do to further your capabilities to reach those goals, or bring in new goals to your event?
I think there's several different ways to look at that. It depends on how you define success, right? We can define success very pragmatically about how many users did we have, how many registrants did we have, how many users did we have in the app, how many significant touches for various aspects internally of the app did we have, and that's pragmatic and right. But for me, when I'm a big social media person. It's a sickness, really. and I know Facebook is for old people, but I'm so entrenched in Facebook professionally. So many of my professional connections are there. I'm approaching 5,000 friends on Facebook, because so much of it is just through the choral world. And when I see people posting, this was a life-changing experience. And when I see people, I'm connected to all of these conductors. When I see people hiring the conductors that they see at these conferences, be their conductors at their festivals, and bring them to their area so that their musicians, their singers can experience them, that's a measure of success. When I see someone's music get performed at the national conference and then take off because it was done by choir A at the national conference or a regional conference. And then suddenly you see these reports of all of these different choirs doing this piece of music. That connects people on another level, right? Because they can then connect to other people that have done this music. I do a lot of different things. One of the things I do is poetry. I write poetry for choral composers, and bespoke, like, so they come to me and they say, Mark, I need a poem about chickens, and I write a poem about chickens. And you make these connections at these conferences, and that winds up leading to more connections and more art being made, and more lives being changed. So when I see a college student come to their first national conference, and then they put this post out that just says, I've never felt more sure about what I'm doing, that's a measure of success, right? Because now they're going to go on to influence so many different lives. So there's the pragmatic things and the numbers things and the money things. And did we was this a cost negative or a profit making event that allows the organization to invest more in future events? Because that's the idea of a organization. ACDA is not trying to make money to just for the sake of making money. They're making money so that they can invest in the organization and in programs that benefit our members. So the more we can do that, the more that's a definition of a successful event, right? So
That's incredible.
I'm sorry,
Please don't apologize. I hope when we post this, you will maybe drop some lines about chickens so we can see your poetry. My last question for you, Mark. There's so much going on here, right? You have the vision, the people coming together, the logistics management. Do you have one or two tips for people who might be in your shoes managing one big event, managing 5, 6, 7 events?
Yeah.
What's your advice for folks?
So, my role as the national app chair means that I interface with every aspect of the conference. I interface with all the exhibitors, I interface with sponsors, I interface with the intra-session presenters, I interface with all of these people, right? And my biggest advice to anyone that is in a role like this is organization and data management and collecting the data that you need to populate. In my case, Guidebook, I'm populating our guide with as much rich information that's going to benefit. So, like, I'll give you for instance. There's a set of concerts at these events. And the concerts that are the audition choirs, the choirs that audition to be part of it, there's usually 3 or 4 choirs per concert. And each of those choirs is doing 6 to 8 pieces. Again, people are coming to these conferences to learn new music. So within that session inside the app, I put in, one of my committee members does it for me. We put in all of the rep that's being performed by each choir, and we link every single title to a distributor so that they can go and see how much does this cost. Is it written for just that kind of choir? Or is it written also for this kind of choir? And so making this as rich as possible, but collecting all that information and organizing that information. If you don't have a system in place to do that, collecting all the bios, collecting all of the headshots, all of that stuff, information from exhibitors, information from sponsors, all of that, developing a system and implementing it early. The earlier you can implement that kind of thing, the better. I think that is probably my biggest piece of advice. And specifically to Guidebook, one of the reasons that we chose Guidebook is because of its flexibility and its implementation. You can, right off the shelf, have it work for you. Just put the information in and it'll look beautiful and it's lovely. In my case, I am a self-taught graphic designer, so the ability for me to go in and make it look like us, to upload icons, to upload different graphics, all of these things, to customize the look and feel of it so that it feels like ACDA. And it's, that is really important. So yes, you can just implement it, but if you don't have that skill set, find someone that does, because then you can really make it look like your organization. And then the membership knows that. They can tell. The attendees can tell, right? Well, this is thoughtfully put together. So I don't know. That's
great. I love that emphasis on really bringing your brand to the app and really being considerate in how it is great that you can use Guidebook and input all the information, and it will look great, but there's that extra bit you can do to really make it look like your brand, your event. And I love that you're making sure you do that and give your attendees, your users, your members that kind of look and feel of they know where they are. They're seeing what they would see on your website and your socials, and all of that come together under one sort of identity, which is great. Well, I know I think we're up on time, which is great. And Mark, it's been really nice having you in, hanging out, and just getting a sense of the work that you do. For me, something that's resonating through all of this is just the passion and the love for the music that you what's the word I'm looking for? I've completely forgotten the word I'm looking for. But the people that you touch, the people that you work with in your event, the music that you represent, everything that you do, there's passion and the love for it, which is always great to hear when event organizers are talking about that in what they do.
Can I share something with you really quickly? Because I think I owe Guidebook a thank you. So this year I was awarded the National Volunteer Excellence Award by ACDA.
Congrats.
And
amazing.
There's no way that happens, particularly over the last couple of years, without such a useful platform to make our work just easier, right? It's so intuitive. It makes what we do, we can worry about the stuff on our end and not have to worry about the platform, because we just know the platform's going to do what we want it to do. And what we it's, again, the flexibility, we can make it do whatever we really want. And without that, I don't think that award would have happened. So thanks for your part in that. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Congrats again. That's an incredible achievement. And you're wrangling so much information, like I said, and managing all these different events. And we are more than happy just to be a cog in that machine, helping you excel, helping you bring community together. We really, really appreciate you sharing your perspective and inspiring us and inspiring our listeners that this is doable, and you can have really impactful moments. You can bring people together and really all of that, the life-changing experience bit, I think, is a great soundbite of, how do you measure success? Are you changing lives? That's the goal. That's an incredible goal. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
No, it's been great to have you in, and we'll catch everyone else again next week and see you for another episode of the Guidebook Greenroom. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks again.